Hey, this is Ross Bain with Role-Playing Bulwark Radio. This is RPPR episode 172, How to Run a Game for the First Time.
Woo!
Because I can't believe we haven't actually addressed that topic.
Well, we might have, but not in a whole episode.
Yeah. So we, of course, have Tom here.
Yes.
And we also have a special guest.
Hi, I'm Kory Bing.
Yeah. The creator of the webcomic Skin Deep.
Yes.
I've mentioned this comic once or twice on the podcast.
Yeah.
I likes it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Kory's in town here in Springfield, and Tom is actually friends with her, so he invited her on the podcast. And yeah,
Indeed.
And you know what role-playing games are, so
Yes,
that's all
I
you
do.
need to be qualified.
I don't know a whole lot more than that, but I do know what they are.
We don't either. It's fine.
Yeah, that's all. I just wing it as you go.
Yes.
That's what we do.
No one
Sounds good.
knows. It's unknowable, really. So, for this episode, basically, there have been many people over the years who have sort of emailed me, messaged me on various social media platforms. And they have, from MySpace to Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how far back RPPR dates. Yay.
We are ancient.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
And so a person recently did this on Twitter, and it made me realize that we haven't really addressed this as a unique topic, because I couldn't just listen to this episode. This is literally all you have to do. Dude. So
What are you saying? There's more to what we do than just one episode can cover?
yeah.
Wow.
So
this is news.
it is news. So basically, this person said, "Hey, I'm running this a game in D&D, and I have this premise. Here's the premise, and." So I'm a fairly green DM, and I would like to ask your advice on how to make it great fun for everyone. And that was
That's a tall order.
that's
That's a
kind
big
of
question.
yeah. So for me, I gave him I realized that the way I addressed it was to basically, your premise seems fine. What are you concerned with? And then he started, oh, okay, well, I'm bad. I don't think I'm going to be good at improv. I'm not going to be good at coming up with things. And so we kind of went from there. But I mean, yeah, it is a very broad topic. So for both of you, I guess, what do you think is the most important thing to do when you're first running games? When you're starting out, what would your starting advice be?
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
I think first time GMs, I would imagine just because I did it when I was 7 for the first time. So I don't think I was quite doing it right. But this is going to be fun. We're going to play like TMNT and it's going to be great. And of course it's we're still at the level of, I do this. No, you don't. Pew, pew. We're still doing that.
I mean, in some games, yeah.
But so I don't think.
I've only done a couple campaigns, and they were usually one-shots, but I think the biggest thing was just to be flexible. Like if something's not really going the way you thought it was, don't let that ruin the experience, and just try to have fun no matter what happens.
I think that is the sort of the key, especially with the improv aspect of it. And being afraid, I think, because a lot of people who message me are hung up on something. They think they can't get past something. They can't improv, that they're going to, be a horrible GM.
You're not going to know the rules.
Yeah.
Well, nobody knows the rules.
Everyone's there to have fun. I
Yeah.
think that's the most important part. Is
Yeah.
If you're not having fun, then you're kind of, what's the point of doing it?
Everything else is usually incidental to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, but I mean, there are specific things you can do. So usually the sort of areas you have to do to run a game is, first, you have to learn the rules of the game to a degree. Obviously.
Yeah. If
and
you learn them too well, that can actually make it not fun.
Oh, yeah. Don't want to actually everyone whenever they try to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the GM, I think to a degree that's because you want everybody to be consistent. At least.
Yeah, we've had some situations where one or two players are know the rules inside and out. They know their Bible.
Yeah.
And everyone else doesn't, and it's kind of what are they doing? Can we do that?
Yeah. So, I would say for the GM, for your first time reading the book, obviously read it, as much of it as you can. If you don't have time to read it cover to cover, try to at least read the big important parts, if you're going to be, and what are the important parts? I would say, think about what kind of adventure, what kind of story you want to tell. If you're doing one with a lot of combat, make sure you understand the combat rules. If you're doing something that is
a talkie kind of game.
Yeah. Then if there's social conflict rules or negotiations, that kind of thing, you would definitely want to learn those rules. Obviously, you should probably one thing that in most role playing games they have this thing called session 0, which is a where you all sit down and make characters together and sort of talk about what you want the premise of the game to be, and that's a very important sort of.
It is very much.
So, have you ever done like a session 0? Have you heard of this term?
Not.
Okay. So, yeah, in session 0, this is before you actually sit down and run your game. Everybody like sits down and talks about what kind of game they want to play, what they want to be in it, and what kind of characters they want to make for it. So the GM will often sort of like, as the GM, you'd like pitch, I want to run this type of adventure. I want to run a nautical adventure where you're all pirates and you're fighting this evil kingdom and you're like Robin Hood, but on the sea, and there's mermaids and robots for some reason. You know?
Probably not good to have one guy. Or I'm going to play a ruthless killer.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, yeah, but then you could also make that into a negotiation. Because like, because this is sort of like the introduction of like the other sort of important concept, this social contract, like the idea that everyone's here sort of playing by the same rules of etiquette and like give and take. You know,
you don't want someone to like make your characters and bring them to the first session, and then you're like, I'm a god.
Yeah,
it's like that's kind of hard to work around.
Yeah,
and usually those situations you're like, wow, those are some very impressive stats you've rolled up, like almost suspiciously good.
I'm sure that your dice really said those numbers.
Yeah, or the idea like the player's like, I'm playing a ranger whose family was murdered by goblins, and I hate goblins, and they're my preferred enemy, and I'm the goblin slayer.
And
then
the next
like,
person's like, I'm a goblin.
I'm a goblin.
That could make for some interesting things, but not if like the person's just like, I just hate this person always, and I'll never talk to them.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah. If the group knows each other, that's less of a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing about that is like that's often sort of a very common thing in role playing games. The scenes will start out very dramatic and very interesting, but then people will like dig in and be like, "I'll never talk to you. I'll never do that." And that's not how like drama works, because characters eventually have to relent and work with each other or like come to some sort of resolution, not just like say no and like everything stops.
Yeah, like I ran my first online version of the Skin Deep game that I did. I said, okay, like session 0, like read some of the comics so you kind of know what's going on here.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing is about role playing games is that there's still storytelling, which is important, like in Kory Bing's comic Skin Deep. So, yeah, do you think that like any of the storytelling principles you've learned while writing and creating Skin Deep would apply to role playing games?
I think so. I haven't played any of the games based off of my comic, but I have kind of peeked in every once in a while to see what's going on. And I feel like the ones that work the most are people that try to work within the story and not be like, I like the story, but I want this one character that I made a long time ago that I want to export into this setting, but it doesn't really work in the setting, but I'm going to make it work in the setting. And it's like, that could work, but it's not as much fun as like.
Wow. What was the most egregious example of that?
I'm trying to think. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's usually because Skin Deep only has a certain amount of, I mean, there's the ability to have a whole bunch of different species of animals, but there's like a certain amount of species that show up often in the comic, and there's some of them that are like, these are extinct, like dragons are extinct. Like, well, I have a dragon character. It's like, well, I mean, there is a dragon in the comic, and they're not technically extinct, but like it would cause a big problem. Like, you wouldn't really be able to play.
Yeah, like they don't have medallions.
Yeah, they don't have medallions, so you couldn't really play the more fun aspects of it, which is disguising yourselves as humans and trying to get like be part of this underground society. If you're this one, yeah. So it's like you could do that, but it's not really in the spirit of the fun for it. And it's like this is extinct. Well, I'm that special thing that's extinct. It's like, well, wouldn't you rather be this other thing, like a griffin or like a bugbear?
They seem to be popular.
Yeah, they're fun.
I like that idea. Yeah, that is sort of a very good point. You have to make your character work with the setting in particular, because like if my character is the most special snowflake, and then like no, my character is the most specialist snowflake.
Yeah, then it's like, oh, the story is about me.
Yeah,
it's like, well, maybe it could be about all of us.
Yeah,
I mean, my players. I gave I had a little leeway because it takes place during World War II, but no, the whole group, they read the comic and like they're like, oh yeah, it's like, yeah, totally, and everything they made was absolutely with.
I love the characters that y'all came up with; those have been fun to draw.
Oh yeah.
You've commissioned me several times. Different characters; they're always fun.
Oh yeah, like Eugene, the Jub Bird, who was once an executioner.
So yeah, going back to the session 0 thing, like everyone should talk about the characters that they want in this game, the player characters, and that they agree they're sort of congruent with the setting. And then of course by this point we should have some sort of unspoken social contract, like, hey, we're all going to work together. It's a story about all of us, not just one of us. And so then you get to the actual planning of so as your GM, you should do that first. Like, unless you're wanting to just sort of do a one shot kind of test the waters, then you can sort of make up characters. Like everyone's going to play these roles. Like, and that's sort of a fine way to start out GMing, is like making up characters. So, like Kory, if you were going to run, an adventure in a one shot adventure in Skin Deep, the setting, like what kind of characters would you make for that adventure? Like for players who didn't want to, you just want to have these characters ready to go. So players, you're playing this person, you're playing this person.
I would find that, like, if I was going to have like a set amount of characters, I would try.
Well,
to
like the players.
So if I had like 4 or 5, I would try to come up with like a range of characters that, for like my setting specifically, it would be. I think it'd be easiest to fit characters if they're the more kind of mundane creatures of the world. So like have like griffins and satyrs and stuff, and like, but also then have like some kind of weirder ones stuck in that would kind of mesh well together.
Oh, we should probably explain the basic premise of Skin Deep. Yeah.
Skin Deep is about mythical creatures that have been living hidden from the rest of humanity since the Middle Ages, using magical medallions to disguise themselves as humans. And but the main conflict is that some species have medallions and some don't. So like some species can hide themselves easily and kind of integrate themselves into human society really easily, and some would rather just like
be themselves
and be public, and why are we hiding all the time? So like there's a central conflict, and there's a lot of griffins, there's a lot of satyrs, there's a lot of like certain amount of like stock fantasy characters, but there's also weirder ones like Ozellum birds, which is a myth about a bird that can fly backwards. So it's always sees where it's been, but it doesn't know where it's going, sort of. That's the original myth for it. And like, I like to kind of dig around and find the weirder ones and see how I could fit them into the story without like completely breaking all the rules that I've already set up.
Have you used the PSA?
The which one?
The PSA?
No, what is that?
I'll send you a link. It's originated in sort of the water panther of Native American.
Oh yeah, water panthers.
But they became a bird-like creature, and there's a whole fake lore element to it as well.
Oh
yeah. So there's a PSA Illinois, I think.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've mainly focused on just European and surrounding ones, just because that's what I know the most of.
Okay,
and I try to integrate more from different cultures, but I don't really feel comfortable integrating different cultures in until I know them very well, because I don't want to be like, I'm just going to take this and throw it in. Like, here's a Wendigo.
You don't want to pull a J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, no, I do not want to pull a J.K. Rowling at all. So.
I don't know what you're talking about. Wait, she used the Momo. That was pretty fun.
Well, because I'm from Missouri, so I had to use the Momo.
And that's just
Ravi's unwilling assistant.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so you have the setting. It's a very good setting. Like, definitely easily turnable into a role playing game. And so you have sort of like you're like a lower power, more mundane characters, like
griffins and satyrs are usually kind of the most populous ones. And then like, depending on like what kind of like the time setting would be important for like you said that you set yours in World War II, and so like setting a time period and also location, since a lot of these take place in what are called Avalons, which are kind of hidden cities, hidden streets, little hidden just kind of alcoves of mythical creatures where they kind of can come as a community and be themselves. And like the one in the comic is in Liverpool, and it's the largest one, and it's basically a big town that's hidden in a abandoned warehouse. And so like a lot of people, they'll find like cool abandoned buildings to kind of base the story that they're going to have around it. Like I think the one in the Discord one in New Jersey.
I think so.
Yeah. So like they found a cool abandoned building in New Jersey to set it in. So
Springfield was the old Tower Theater.
Yeah, Springfield was the old Tower Theater, the one in Springfield, which is basically just it's just like a shop owned by a fox, and he kind of has some books you can buy. But
yeah.
So what kind of adventure do you think would be good for a starting GM using this setting and using these kind of characters? Like, as I guess going to be our example for the episode.
Okay.
So, what do you think would be a good adventure?
I think I feel like if you would start with either I'm not really super well versed with a lot of role playing games.
Okay, so
Like,
this is sort of the difference
Yeah.
between like story.
yeah, because like
fiction.
the comic itself is mostly focused on like the social aspect of this like kind of day to day slice of life, but also
You can do that in a role-playing game.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
learning that more and more,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you can do more kind of like social contract sort of deals, and so like it wouldn't be I don't think it'd be a very combat focused.
Yeah, you can definitely do
Yeah.
that in a game. But
And so it'd be more like kind of 'cause, like the main focus of the story is kind of living your day-to-day life while also not being human, and kind of the conflicts that arise with that. And so
Whether you're cool with it or you used to be,
Yeah.
now you're
Okay.
not.
yeah.
So, so maybe Tom can help out with that. What do you think would be a good like starter adventure for this setting to use as an example?
I think it might be like just bring all the characters together. Have someone they know suddenly like turn.
Yeah, that might be good.
And like it just started out like that. Like, oh crap, we gotta get hurt. We gotta get them off the street before there's trouble.
Okay.
'Cause that's another part of the story, is that people can be born as human but actually be unturned mythical creatures, and if they get their hands on a medallion that will break the human spell and turn them back to their original form. So you could be someone, you could think you're a human, and then all of a sudden, oh no, I'm a satyr. And so like if you have some other people part of the community that see that, like, oh, we need to help this person get their bearings in this new world.
Okay.
Yeah, or it could even be like one of your friends who doesn't have a medallion has to get from this point
That would be good,
to
yeah.
this point, and like the bartender, like the
Yeah, if you're a
bartender-
harpy, if you're a harpy, and because harpies don't have medallions, so they can't just go out in the street, and so, but you need to go from like one city to another.
Okay. So
How they-
the scenario is escorting, transporting
Yeah.
this person.
and the
from-
hilarity ensues.
Yeah, that could be cool. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I like that.
All right.
I mean,
so
I had an idea. They wanted me to do a continue up of the World War II game, but set it in New York in the 1970s.
That'd be fun.
So yeah, the dingy.
There's a lot you can do with
grimy-
this. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with that setting.
now, so this is a really good premise for a role playing game because like it allows an ensemble cast because like role playing games are ensemble casts because there's always
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like you
Two
don't
or
want-
more players,
You don't want
yeah.
super unique snowflakes, but
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
But I'm a little bit snowflake.
Right. Well, it's not just one person dealing with problems. It's like a whole team
Yeah.
of people dealing with a problem. And everyone can contribute. So
Yeah, and everyone has their own special, unique ability, but it's not like I'm the fairy magic of everything, and I can solve every problem. Immediately.
Right.
Like I have to say, I do really love the like she has the like goddess like powers of a goddess, and I have goat powers.
Yeah, I have goat powers.
and it also allows, I would imagine there are multiple ways of doing this.
Yeah.
Of solving this problem, of getting this person from one place to the other. Like, do you get a van and drive them there, or can you use a magic portal, or like, is the problem even convincing them to go in the first place? Is it a little of all of these?
Yeah, I like that. That's
Yeah.
good.
So, so that's sort of like the first thing you have to think of as a new GM is like, you have to start framing these stories in ways that can be turned into games, because games have winning conditions and losing conditions, and role-playing games you don't really win, but you can have like, victories and defeats.
An adventure.
Yeah, an adventure. That's the whole point. An
Yeah.
adventure. And there has to be usually some sort of what they would call a procedural conflict, like a thing that is not like dramatic per se. It's just like, we have to solve this technical problem.
Yeah.
We have to, in this
Like
case.
you don't have to have a big bad evil looming on the
Yeah.
horizon, but you do need to have a problem to fix.
Right.
Yeah, your van breaks down, and you have a harpy in the back.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So like, the procedural problem can be like, there's a bad guy in a dungeon we have to go kill, or the problem can be, the getting the van fixed while keeping the harpy from being seen, and that kind of thing. And you can add additional complications, perhaps, people see,
Someone brought, and
humans
someone
see
brought
them.
weed in the van.
So that's sort of the first step. And so from there, you'd start planning your adventure. And the planning of the adventure can be sort of improv or encounter. So like, what kind of encounters, what kind of challenges do you think you would have in that sort of adventure?
I think a lot of it be like avoiding being seen would be the major one. And so like maybe your van gets pulled over by a cop, then what do you do? Or even like
Okay, well, why don't we just focus on that one, because it was sort of like encounter building. Encounter building is sort of like the fundamental aspect of a role-playing game. And the difference between like fiction and role-playing games is that in fiction, the author just says, this is what happens. But in role-playing games,
It's like the dice or the cards
Yeah.
or whatever.
well, it's also the player's choices. You don't, you set up a scene, but you don't know how it's going to be determined. And then the real tricky part is you don't know what's going to happen, how that scene is resolved. So you don't know where everyone's going to be. for the next scene.
Yeah.
You assume that they're going to get past the cops,
But they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, all right, so the players are pulled over by a cop. What do you think? How do you think they could resolve this?
There could be a lot of different things that happen. Like even it could be that the cop is another mythical creature in disguise, and so
Well, you're the GM, so
Yeah.
is the cop a GM?
Well, I guess I would probably. I don't.
Yeah. So this is how you have to think. You
Yeah.
do get to set, you do get to set the stage.
Yeah.
So do you want that cop to be human or not?
You've got the power.
I do have the power.
But you don't have all of it.
Yeah, no. I think it would be more interesting if he wasn't, but
Okay.
maybe like one of his superiors is. So like if something happens and
Okay.
they end up getting
If it escalates.
arrested, if it escalates and they get arrested,
The
there might
sergeant
be-
on.
yeah, like his one of their superiors could be a mythical creature in disguise and be like, okay, you guys can go.
Okay.
And
That's good for a starter adventure
Yeah.
because one problem with GMs is like if you do these encounters, they have all these branching paths that go in different directions. One branch could be like, oh, well, game over.
Yeah.
And then you're like 20 minutes in the game. And you're like, well, that was a mistake. Yeah.
What are you saying that happened in things we've done?
Yeah. So in role playing,
everyone's dead.
yeah, this is sort of called the fail forward approach, where you have to allow players to fail forward, at least until the end point, in which you can say, well, you got the bad ending because like you kept messing up. It's like you fell down the stairs and hit every step on the way
You
down.
can only fall upwards so
Yeah.
much.
So, all right. So the cop is normal and they're pulled over. So what are like 2 or 3 ways the players could resolve?
They could try to like if it's a van, I guess if they could try to like hide the harpy under a thing and then try to bluff their way through
Okay.
by not like by hoping that the police person doesn't try
Right.
to search the van or just try to get off without any looking too hard.
No, yeah. Okay. And
That
what-
could be one way of getting out of it. Or like if they don't do well at that, then the policeman could become suspicious and want to kind of check out the thing, everything, and if they end up searching the car, then they find the harpy in the car,
Okay.
and then what happens then?
Okay. Would players have some sort of magical power or something like that to be able
Depends
to?
on what they
It
play.
depends on what they play as. Some are more magical than others. There could be some, or also some just it could not even. It could be a mundane thing of someone being really good at sweet talking their way out of situations, or
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
is sort of a role playing game concern. Players can build different characters with different abilities to
Yeah.
overcome different obstacles. And certainly, if this was a more grimdark game, the players could just kill the cop.
yeah, or if they had an Nemean lion, they could just punch out the
But
cop.
yeah,
and then,
Yeah.
the total tone of the comic says that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, it could if they got nervous enough and someone just punched the cop out and then they ran away and then deal with that down.
So
that
as the
fallout
GM,
later.
you have to wait until you give this scene to the players to find out what they're
Yeah,
going
what
to
they're
do.
gonna do.
And then you have to resolve it. So like, now you've done very good by saying like, oh, there's a friendly cop, a friendly non-human cop waiting at the station to help them
just in
out.
case something.
Just in
happens,
case,
they go to
as insurance. So, but so the players, they could. So we have multiple situations you have to be resolved. So either they get away clean, they talk their way out of it, or they use magic powers, or B, they punch out the cop and now they're on the run.
yeah,
And probably forget the dash cam.
Yeah.
right.
And then, or 3, they get arrested and they go to jail.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare for all 3 contingencies.
And like with the second
And
one,
that
if
goes forward.
to punch out the cop, that could become, well, I guess this is about running away from the cops now because that's what
Exactly.
the story.
That's excellent. That's an excellent point. Yeah.
Are you suggesting the small town cops are not kind to
Yeah,
people
right.
to do
I
that?
don't think anybody's really
Yeah,
kind of
no,
to get
right.
punched out by
Yeah, no.
a Nemean lion. They
Yeah.
sound very strong.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So
Oh
that-
god! Well, if it was a Nemean lion, I think that cop's
Kind
head-
of just kind of top him, just kind of tap him, and then he probably go
Or just
down.
all right. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of go down. But also, like, because of the setting,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like there aren't ways if they are being chased by the law, there are like options of getting like because
Okay.
of the setting, the mythical society of being like there's got to be a way before to get away from because it's been hidden for this long, and like a big thing with the comic is that. It's been hidden for this long. No one really knows exactly why humans haven't figured it out yet, but it's been kind of implied that they're either enough non-humans in higher up places to be able to kind of like shake off suspicion, or that humans just are really good at justifying the impossible things they see as being, it's like, oh, that must have been something else. I didn't see that happen.
or we're
Denial ain't just
or we're just
over
kind
in
of
Egypt.
choosing not to know.
Yeah, that too. Or like the cop could wake up and be like, well, that didn't happen. Like, so, and then not call it in.
Yeah. So, So you can see now as the potential GM, if you are creating this adventure, you realize you have to create not just one path, A to B, but you have to create, A to B to C to D, or A to E to F to G to.
And that's where improv can
A to
kind of
1
play.
to 2 to B.
Yeah. So, but what if the players all say, well, let's not use the van at all. Let's go get tickets and go to the airport.
Well, if you got a Harpy, like you don't mind flying cargo, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like, let's go to the airport. It's like, well, come back tomorrow when I've come up with what the airport is.
Right. Exactly. So, that's sort of what the person going back to the original discussion was really concerned with. It was, how do you improv? And, there's sort of the question is, are you familiar with the term railroading?
Yeah.
As in, role playing games. So, Tom, what is the difference between being able to improvise things and like railroading players to a given situation?
Improvising is kind of going with what they're doing. Like, okay, I absolutely didn't see this happening, but okay, this is where we're going. Here we go. as opposed to railroading, which is, no, that never happened. No,
that didn't happen. You did this.
Like, Honestly, I think that poster right there is one of the most famous incidents of me having to go with it I've ever done.
Oh, the shark punching incident. RPPR.
It was one of our players was they were shanghaied in the 1840s, and one came just refused to go along with it, but the crew is like, well, that's fine, but everyone pulls their weight on the ship, and if you don't, we're not going to feed you. And so finally, he's like, well, what if I do something to prove myself? And then someone who at the table, who I'm totally not going to indicate, suggested, why don't you go kill a shark? But I think Ross did that not knowing that this player would do that.
Kill the shark.
No, I definitely wanted him.
He totally wanted it. And he did, and got a knife, and they're like, I guess we're doing this now. And luckily, the Kame book had rules for sharks.
That's good.
I was like, okay, go combat. Okay, three rounds.
One of the fun things I like, because I was saying before that I don't have a lot of role playing experience, but I do listen to the Adventure Zone, and the first arc of that, which is the kind of the starter classic D&D arc that I didn't know anything about D&D, so after they did the first arc and I listened to it, I went and I got the starter thing for D&D and read what the actual campaign was and what you could actually do, and just they went so far off the rails so early on the first one. It was really fun to see what they made because like everyone has like this starter story, but because just depending on who they have, they could just go completely off the rails really fast.
Yeah, like. God, the World War II game that I ran, like I expected them, there's a scene they had to kind of break into this chateau that was occupied by the Germans. And one of them is out of the blue, the White Stag, ran up and got the attention of like a full squad of SS and a Tiger tank. But the thing is, he ran from them and there's no way they
can catch a White Stag.
So he basically lured almost the entire force away, and no matter what they did, they could not catch him. I'm like, well, because I said, okay, we're going with this. Like, just so you know, the whole place is on alert, but yeah, the giant tank is gone.
So I guess the problem, the concern for new GMs and what this new GM in particular was like, where does improving end and railroading begin? Because like, there's sort of like, there's this purpose that you have run this adventure in this certain space, like this story space, like getting this person from this place to this place. And you obviously haven't like simulated the entire universe. You haven't like thought of every potential person on this planet and everything else. So obviously you can't just like, if they decide to quit and become like exterminators in Wyoming, something like, or start a bar somewhere, like that would be, you could be like, okay, well, you're not playing the game anymore. Yeah. So like the question is like, how far can I improvise? Like how far can I tell the players like, yeah, you could do this thing that I didn't expect, or you'd be like, no, you need to come back closer to what I wrote out.
That also feels like something that is like with a lot of stuff I would think with role playing is being able to gauge the room. Like if the party very much does not want to go in the way that you wanted them to go, then trying to force them back on track would be railroading. But if they're kind of getting off track and you kind of nudge them back towards the way.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing for especially new GMs is they may not feel good about their improv ability. So they feel like they have to stay only in the stuff that they wrote, even though it would necessarily like an airport. So like, the skin deep setting pretty well. You could probably think on your feet. Yeah. You'd be like, well, airports are like this in skin deep. And like, these are the kind of concerns that they would have. That's probably something you thought about before. So that wouldn't be too hard for you.
Yeah.
So you would probably be okay with them.
So I guess like it's knowing the setting really well would help a lot with improving.
And also, it depends on the airport.
Yeah, that too. Well, yeah, it's like for if you're a new GM, I feel like knowing kind of the world and being able to like if something happens to this character in this world, what would happen? Sort of.
Yeah, so it's sort of like more of an ecology, like more of like an ecosystem.
Because there's the what are the consequences of these actions like set in this specific world,
and that's actually important. Just not being afraid of the consequences. Like, okay, you guys can go do this, but this is possible. This could happen. And
that's a big part just about storytelling in general is like knowing the world well enough. And like, I mean, you don't have to, but it helps for more like solid world building if you kind of know in general, like if this happens, what are the consequences? And then if this happens, what are the consequences?
Right. I mean, the thing about Railroad and the reason why players don't like it is because it takes away the consequences of their actions to a degree because their choice doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You're going down. It's a one-way path from A to B to C to D, and there's no choice. And like choices should have consequences.
Yeah.
And if the choices don't have consequences, what does any of
Yeah,
this
like
matter?
if your character is just like, I blow up the entire building, and it's like, well, roll for it. And then if they do blow up the entire building, then it's like, well, I guess we're figuring out what happens if you blow up an entire building in this thing.
Which in this case, the whole city's on lockdown.
Yeah.
Right. But a Railroad GM was like, okay, well, in the next scene, we're going to a party over here. Like, wait, I blew up a building.
Yeah.
Well, that's not in my notes, so it doesn't matter.
Like, you blow up the building in the next scene, and then a big rain cloud comes and extinguishes it, and it's fine. It's like,
exactly.
no.
Or you don't.
Yeah.
You're now at a party.
Yeah.
Or that day, it's like, oh, it was a gas main. Like, this happened an hour ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of so for a GM. So I don't know, Tom, do you have any advice for that GM who's uncertain about like how far they can improvise, how far they can like go beyond their written notes?
Once again, like, it will become obvious when it's clear when the players are really just going. I mean, there's the branches A, B, C, but you can tell when they're going F or like Z over here. At that point, like, oh, I don't think they're interested in what I'm doing at all.
So let's change it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's more just most players, and I've gamed for a long time, and even with groups I don't know, and most of the time they want to see where you're going to take them. You know, they still want it to be their adventure, but they definitely want to see, okay, like you're taking me somewhere. Very few times have I encountered players that are like that, and you can realize what's going on pretty quick.
And it's also kind of against the spirit of it if you're being like, I don't want to do what the GM wants, or not even that. Like, it's just like, I don't want to play ball with this. I want to do something completely different. It's like, well, then you're kind of not in the spirit of what we're doing here.
And
that's exactly right. Yeah.
And actually, the few times it's happened, the other players are very clear, like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're both really dead on, especially talking about consequences and choice, because that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like the role playing games are collaboration
Yeah.
to create a story as it is happening. Not
And that's
just,
what you get with like this isn't role playing, like a tabletop role, like video games. If you think that you have a choice and then the ending is you don't have a choice at all, you're like, well, I don't like that. It doesn't matter if how good.
Looking at you, Mass Effect. Looking at you.
I liked Mass Effect's ending, but I do understand.
Hot take.
I do understand that if you're really involved in my everything I did has a consequence, and then the ending is just like pick your color.
Okay, Mass Effect 3 after all the add-ons was good.
Citadel was really good.
Citadel was the best.
It was very good. But no, I can understand. I liked it personally, but I can understand people who were very disappointed in thinking that they had a whole bunch of choice and then finding out that they didn't have as much choice as they thought they did.
Okay. Relevant tangent, actually.
We're nerds. We'll go on tangents.
Yes, I know.
It's true.
Weirdly enough, I know that. So now you have all this in mind, knowing that like what it takes to create a role playing game story, like a scenario. Like, how much do you think you'd have to write before you'd be ready to run this skin deep game?
Well, I mean, I've been writing Skin Deep for
a little while.
12 years. Actually, 13 this month.
Oh my god.
Oofa doofa. Yeah, it's so like I've got several years of backup of I kind of know the story pretty, or like the setting really well.
But we're talking about these.
Yeah. So like if I have like a setting that I like, it's like the getting a harpy from point A to point B setting. I feel like I know the world well enough that I could basically anything that the players wanted to kind of do, I would kind of be able to roll with it just because I know the setting really well. But if I didn't know the setting as well, I would like to have at least like a couple like endings, like the A, B, or C endings really mapped out, just in case it had, like if they like really think about what players could do in different situations and try to guess what they might want to do and then kind of guess from there.
One thing that I do a lot of times is I create encounters without knowing exactly when they will be in there. Like sort of like, oh, at this point the bad guy attacks them, you know, like there's that old saying from I think it was Raymond Chandler, was like, when in doubt, like I have two guys with guns coming through the door. So like
when in doubt, a penguin blows up.
Yeah, penguin blows up. Yeah, something like that happens. And so like for example in the Skin Deep setting, there's probably characters with magical powers who could just find the player characters wherever they are and just be like, the hell are you doing?
It's like what is up with this? Come
Yeah. You could have like kind of like a box full of encounters that you can go like while you're playing, be like, oh, this would be a good time for this one. I've
exactly.
already,
Yeah.
and here you go, plop.
Or is that John Wick's in the bar you're in.
Yeah.
So yeah, usually I have a couple of goalposts, like I definitely a beginning set up, and then like an ending in mind. Like at this point, the scenario is done. Like in a lot of games I run are mysteries, so like they've either solved the mystery or they're never going to
solve my mystery.
Yeah. Or the players are dead from the evil things that caused the mystery in the first place. Yeah,
or worse.
And then sort of I have a bunch of things in between, like because I understand the sort of like the ecology of everything that's going on, or the ecosystem really. Yeah, Tom, what for writing a scenario, like what do you usually do, like in terms of how much you write?
I generally more have outlines than I do anything. Like if it's mysteries, I have to know, okay, what clues are found where that could lead them. Otherwise, a lot of the game I just kind of have on the top of my head. I have a few notes, maybe a page of them, but I'm more kind of like, I kind of like scenarios where I don't know exactly what's all going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But some games that's more better to do for some games than others. Like mysteries, you really don't.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like depending on what kind of, if it's an adventure or like a mystery, especially if it's like a closed door mystery where you know what all the facts are, you know what's going on, so you just have to discover it. There's not a whole lot. I mean, there's still room for
finding
weirdness
clues
happening.
and this is where the game part mysteries are a whole kind of separate category, and maybe you should run at least a few basic adventures first before you really dive in that, because mysteries, I feel there's the game part where maybe you miss clues because you failed some game mechanic.
The clues are still there.
Yeah, the clues are still there, but you didn't roll well, or you didn't allocate your character's abilities, or you used your character's abilities incorrectly, like you used them up too early and so you don't have them, or you used them wrong, or you made wrong choices, like you alienated potential witnesses or whatever. But I mean, the core thing for mysteries is interpreting evidence. You know, you have this information, and you have to figure out what it actually means.
I gave you all the clues.
Yeah,
policeman.
So so you've written some encounters for your adventure, and you have more in mind. You certainly know the setting well enough. What do you think? And you're ready to run the game. Are you going to do anything before you actually just sit down at the table and start running it, or do you feel like you're?
I don't know.
I would encourage the players to read the comic a little bit.
Yeah.
So know the game setting.
I would prefer for the people to kind of know the setting before going into it. I like the idea of the session 0 of just kind of getting familiar with the setting and the characters and everything before you really just kind of jump into it.
Right. I mean, sometimes you don't do that because it's a game you just want to try out, or it's a convention or something like that. It's more of a casual thing. So I know for one thing, I try to make sure everybody knows the game rules, like the basic mechanics of like how their character works and the things that they can do. Like if they have a special magic power, like the Nemi line, like, oh, here's how your strength mechanic works. And
I would honestly discourage people from playing those.
Yeah. Would it be fun though? Like, would it be fun to have sort of like, if you know have a group of new players to kind of write scenarios where like they could really use their abilities, kind of make sure they know the rules, kind of a tutorial level, kind of.
I'm a very big proponent of that myself. I know those D&D starter adventures tend to be like that to a certain degree. Certainly D&D also has this thing called sort of niche protection, where like in D&D you have different roles for characters. Like this character stands in front of the enemies and holds them back. He's the tank. Then this character heals the tank so he doesn't die. And then there's the wizard in the back who blasts all the enemies, and then there's the rogue who finds traps. And so I would imagine Skin Deep probably doesn't have as much of that because it's more character focused and comedic rather than, like we must kill all the monsters, or solve all the bad guy mysteries.
I mean, where someone playing a member of the Finn family could have the power, money.
Yeah, power. I have money.
Well, I mean, how does that work in game? Can
Yeah.
they just charter a private jet then?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean that's kind of what I was implying with like as part of my comic is I had someone fly from Missouri to Liverpool, and it's like, how'd she get through airport security? It's like, well, he has a lot of money, and they probably had a private jet.
Well, I think one of the reader questions was actually like, how does Jim get by? He says like, how does he fly? Like first class. I'm rich.
I'm rich. Yeah.
So, you would have to have mechanics for that. And then, of course, you also have to think that creates a new problem or sort of a new thing to consideration. Are the characters too powerful for certain things? Like, is this going to trivialize the encounter if they can just charter a jet?
Yeah. And that's always a challenge, isn't right in the comic too. It's like, I have all these characters with all these different powers. Like, what if this one character could just like defeat everything and be done with it? It's like, that's not very much fun.
Yeah,
So,
that's good. Like Anemian Lion. Like,
Yeah.
Sure, it's like, okay, there's like they punched out the cop, and now there's a military Humvee with an M60. Like, well, he's fine.
yeah.
So in that case, you could add in a complication.
Yeah.
Perhaps someone is chasing this character, this harpy that they're trying to carry across. Maybe it's one of the harpy's family members who's convinced that they can save them or something like that. Or
and like in the comic itself, like one of the main characters is she's a sphinx, and she's implied to have like this all powerful kind of goddess ability, but also she has no idea how to use any of her powers. So like she's not very good at that, and like maybe in the future she might be a powerhouse that wouldn't be very much fun to play with, but right now she's just like, I don't know how to do anything.
But people expect her to know.
Yeah, people expect her to know how to do things. She's like, I don't know how to do this. Why are you asking me?
right. So then in that case, maybe she in the game mechanics, you could either have it like she doesn't have the power yet. So
Yeah, or like roll a dice and maybe she just completely fails at it, or maybe she pulls it off, or maybe she fails.
there are some games that like let you build up points, like Fate, and you get Fate points, and then you can spend them to gain advantages later on. So like perhaps it could be a Fate point mechanic.
Yeah.
So like if you build up 5 points, you can spend all 5 to activate her power.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah. So something
and
like
also
that.
in like Skin Deep, because there is magic in Skin Deep, but it's very like notoriously finicky to use. So like having a very high failure rate if you want to try to do a spell.
Looking at you, Tim.
Yeah, and like they have a lot of repercussions. So like it's like magic is really powerful, but it also has very powerful repercussions if it doesn't work right. So you can't just be firing off magic missile all the time.
So those are all valid concerns, and that's sort of like, again, on the GM to understand what the player characters can do, and what their adversaries, what challenges they're facing. And a lot of this just is for new GMs. This is just practice. Like you just have to like run the games to learn these sort of pitfalls and like what's comfortable with you and your players to a certain degree. But yeah, that's sort of the basic concerns for me in terms of like running an adventure for the first time. Are there any other concerns you would have with running an adventure?
No, I feel like it's one of those things that I would have to kind of deal with them as I come to them, sort of thing. But I feel a lot more confident in being able to do if I
Okay.
Actually, I'd say play some games first.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, playing games is definitely fun, but somebody's got to run it.
Yeah,
Everybody's new.
but
Someone's got to.
I would definitely not want to just jump into to DMing without having played games first to kind of see how they work out.
Actually, there's another bit of advice for new GMs. Often these games will have stat material to mechanically describe like non-player characters. Like this, like in D&D, of course, these monsters have this many hit points and their armor class, and here's what their attacks are, and blah 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 blah. So one thing you can do is basically those stats are just numbers, so you can assign them to another character. So like, oh, here's a crab monster. Well, I don't need a crab monster, but I do need a turtle monster. Oh, look, hey, this turtle monster
Has
suddenly
crab stats.
Yeah, it has crab stats. So
Well, are you saying Pinchy should have been a turtle?
I mean, Pinchy still works as a turtle's name because the bite could be
There
Pinchy.
you go.
So you can reuse stats and just take stats from one thing to another and like reuse them. Again, there's this again Schrodinger's plot element where like the dilemma shows up wherever you need it to show.
Yeah, like
up.
if you're in the middle of a campaign and someone says that they want to adopt one of the characters as a pet, and you don't have any stats written up for that character. It's like, well, I'm gonna find you don't want to go like, no, you can't do that. Because that kind of just stops everything in its tracks, and you want to yes and.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Also, be careful if you create a memorable NPC. The players may want you to keep playing him forever.
Barry
Oh yeah,
Bridges.
that actually does bring up an entirely different part, which is actually the role playing part as the GM. So as a GM, you have to role play. You have to act out as many different characters. So, yeah. Any advice for new GMs for that, Tom? Or
I would say just kind of know who they are. I mean, if you create a character, you probably know how this character sounds, what they would do. And I think it's good just on the fly think of like, okay, I need a guy here. I mean, you don't have to come up with a unique voice for every single character. You don't be like, hey, this.
Get a random name generator loaded.
Definitely
on
get a random name generator.
You don't have to have like the entire history of the character and his lineage figured out, but
they can't all be Steve.
Unless the players demand it.
Yeah.
Which like that first happened with the Goblin in one of our games.
Would you suggest like to people who if they want to be a DM but they haven't had many chances to play a game themselves before DMing, like maybe listening? There's a lot of D&D podcasts, like actual play podcasts and stuff. Would that be
like role playing RPPR actual play?
Yes,
No, or the Adventure Zone or whatever, or Critical Role, whatever.
Critical Role, like getting because I feel like I didn't know much about it at all before listening to Adventure Zone and kind of hearing what's like also because I it was kind of intimidating when I first started thinking about role-playing games. I didn't really want to get into it because like it seemed like everyone knew exactly what they were doing all the time, and then listening to the Adventure Zone and seeing that no, they're just making it up as they go along, and and some of it fails and some of it doesn't, and they just kind of go on, and that made me feel a lot. It's like, oh, this is actually something that could be done, and it's not.
And improv is easier with people you know.
Yeah, it's a lot less intimidating
and practice. But another thing is also don't worry about getting all the rules right. Try to get most of them right, or at least the core rules right. But like, don't worry if you get fall damage wrong. Like if a character falls off a cliff and you roll the wrong number of dice, it's fine.
What's the game that has like notoriously horrible like grapple rules or something? It's like as soon as you have to do like hand-to-hand combat, it's like, oh no, we're playing this.
I mean, there's most games. D&D actually has pretty bad grapple rules.
It's like, oh no, please pick up a weapon. I don't want to do this.
D20 in particular has got a lot of
World of Darkness has bad grapple rules. Honestly, every single role-playing game has bad grapple rules.
Please pick up a weapon. I don't want to have to do
grapple rules are notoriously bad in every role-playing game.
That's one of those things I remember hearing from and talking about. It's like, oh no.
Yeah. D&D in particular, because there's a lot of different checks to make. And
I forget things like in Eclipse, we were playing a Eclipse phase game. I'm playing an uplifted octopus who got grappled by a monster in space. And I forgot, oh wait, I have 8 limbs. I think I'm really good at grappling.
Yeah, I got the grapple rules wrong for that, but yeah. So,
but we decided we didn't have to just redo everything we did.
And
that's the thing. That's the thing where like story is more important than knowing every rule. And it's like, oh, we got these rules where I have to do the fight over.
In fact,
again.
the monster was really good at grappling too,
but I was a little better. But we just kind of played it up as like, oh god, I'm panicking. Oh wait, I'm this. Yeah.
So, don't worry too much about getting all the rules right. Just try and get most of them right. But also in terms of like broad, like don't get too caught up on like doing correct accents or anything like that. Try and act through different like, a erudite character would be very speak very carefully and precisely, while a horrible trash goblin be like, yes. So like it could be
there it is.
It could there, and doing a pirate accent for any kind of fish.
Doesn't have to be super authentic as long as the point gets across.
Obviously don't do offensive accents or that kind of thing. So but think more of their personality and how they act to characters, and try and make NPCs, non-player characters, a little different. So you're not all talking to Bob or Steve. Yeah.
I mean, as long as the players are enjoying the interaction, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
More than once I play a character and I'm realizing the characters are into it. I'll just start doing stuff out of sheer excitement. I think they like this person. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you want to do more of that. Yeah. So,
Just be open to new things. I feel like is the really important part.
Yeah, that's definitely it. It's not as scary as you think. It's a lot of fun, and when everybody's like really jazzed at the end, it's like, we saved the harpy guys. Woo!
Yeah, even as a GM, if the players do that afterwards, you're like, he's like, oh yeah.
And then they'll ask, when do we play next time? Do we play next week? Yeah. So
that's how it starts.
Yeah. And that's how it starts, and that's how you get hooked.
It's like, you do that for the first time in 1987. Now you're doing it 30 32 years
now
later.
now you have a room full of little figurines and
Yep. Well, Minnie's comment. That's a whole separate. Oh god.
Mini, that's a whole thing.
Other can of worms. Can of paint. And yeah. Any other concerns you would have or questions about running a game?
not that I can think off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Very
you could.
enlightening.
I mean, like minis and props are also good if you can have them. Handouts,
Yeah,
like
that'd be
little. Yeah, you can get a little crafty on it. Certainly, mystery adventures benefit from that most if there's like bloody notes and that kind of thing. So,
or if you can actually like create the telegram that they received, and
depending on what historical
Call of
era.
Cthulhu like has a lot of like actual like newspaper
That's
printouts
cool.
and
Yeah,
things in the
that's
back.
fun.
Yeah, especially if you're running, like it would also help to read other adventures too. Like you read the starter set adventure. You could read other adventures, in the same sort of category or genre that you're writing for. So for Skin Deep, there's not a lot of modern, there's some modern fantasy. I don't know how many, there are modern fantasy, role-playing games. There's not many adventures that I can think of off the top of my head, but I'm sure you could find some. But yeah. Also as a GM, try and pick a RPG setting that is easy for you to either make up from the fly, because there's nothing there like D&D, which is just it's every video game and Lord of the Rings and all that other nonsense all put together, or it's the real world, but there's also this.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of knows how airports work.
Yeah, it's the real world. But
Yeah.
sometimes you have an angel riding in the back of your pickup truck.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So, so when we come back, we'll have shout outs and anecdotes.
Woo!
And we're back after our, vaporwave or whatever music I put in there. Because
We don't know.
yeah, I mean,
We just don't.
sometimes it's not vaporwave. So,
Incredible.
anyways, for shout outs, first off, we should, Kory, you should tell us more about Skin Deep.
Yes, hello. My webcomic Skin Deep it's been running it's going to be turning 13 this year in November, which is now. So yeah,
Teenager.
13. Yeah, it's turning 13. So if you like to archive binge, there is quite a lot of material to read. It's about mythical creatures living hidden from humanity. You can find it at skindeepcomic.com. And also, I have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/Kory Bing. And you can join the Patreon Pin Club, which is every month you get a little enamel pin of different Skin Deep characters sent to you. And I also make a bunch of other enamel pins. Like if you like paleo art, dinosaur stuff, extinct animals, I do a lot of extinct animal art, which you can find at korybing.storeenvy.com.
Cool. I know what we'll use as episode art for this. That's a pretty easy catch. Pretty easy call.
No, it's awesome work.
Well, thank you.
I'm a patron, and
So are these extinct animals? You draw them as they were when they were live?
Yes.
Or, okay. Not.
Well,
just
sometimes I also have a couple I have earrings that are like saber-tooth tiger skulls. And,
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I got some, but most of it I like to reconstruct extinct animals.
and
So
kaiju.
I like to say my shtick is animals that don't exist and animals that don't exist anymore.
Oh,
So
okay.
mythical creatures and extinct animals. And
Fair enough.
monsters.
Kaiju a couple of times.
Monsters, cryptids, yeah.
It's all good. So.
It's all good.
Yeah, there's
I
like
actually, on the RPPR Patreon Discord, I basically sort of, did some brainstorming with some of the people in the Patreon and talked about doing an RPG basically based on Wacky Race, but we'd call it Cryptid Rally.
Really fun.
totally going with Mothman.
I've got a
Yeah, so like there would be different classes for each archetype of racer.
I've got such a weakness for the wacky racers.
Yeah.
Shtick.
So yeah, just do Cryptid, right? Yeah, just
that'd be
it's
awesome.
Mothman in a souped up sports car. Or
Yeah,
something
that'd be
like
awesome.
That. Yeah. We'll have to talk about that
Yeah,
because I could use art for
really,
that.
yeah, I would be way into drawing that.
Okay, interesting.
Momo in a rum running car.
Yeah.
Okay. The Flatwitch monster in a UFO.
Okay. So for my first shout out, I actually have to be the Murderbot Diaries, Book 2, Artificial Condition. This is, I've been reading that recently. Well, I finished it, and it's a very entertaining novel. It is the Murderbot on the run, trying to find out whether or not he murdered a lot of people in a mine when he was still under the control of an AI governor. And
Those are the things you want to know.
His memory had been erased, but he had some vague recollection of the being on this mining planet. And then he's like, "Well, what happened?" And so he goes there and gets involved with a lot of shenanigans.
I'm sure they're wacky.
Yeah, he has to deal with this ship AI, the spaceship AI that he negotiates with, and is very snooty towards him, or helpful. I don't know. I don't know. It's delightful, is what it is.
And layers upon layers.
There is some murdering in it. It's great.
Well, sometimes you got to murder. Sometimes.
Yeah. Speaking of books, Tom, you've been reading one.
Yeah, I got one for class actually, but I'm really enjoying it. It's the Satanic Panic, pop culture paranoia in the 1980s, and now. I lived through it, A. And B, also, I'm a huge fan of Everything is Terrible, so...
Oh, yes.
I've seen many videos on it.
There's that classic chick track about D&D being
yeah. Or in the movie Mazes and Monsters.
Oh, yes, maybe it's Mazes and Monsters. I forgot about Mazes and Monsters.
But it's... Because it's just seeing Satan in everything.
Everything.
Like Rainbow Bright.
Yeah.
And I love, and it has
He-Man. No.
Oh, yeah.
It has images like of the He-Man Snake Mountain, like it turns your voice into a demon, and
very good.
It's just I can't believe what people
Paranoia,
believe.
yeah, it's bonkers.
Speaking of evil, I've been playing a video game called Sea Salt, which is about being Dagon, the god of the sea, and the bishop of your church. You've told him to sacrifice himself for your glory, and he's like, no. And you're like, well, can't have that. So you send a curse of monsters to go kill him and everyone who stands in your way. And that's what the game's about. You're the horde of monsters. And so you go find altars and you can summon more monsters. There's a bunch of different types.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah. So you can summon cultists that shoot little energy balls that blow up enemies, or you can giant crabs that eat enemies, or fishmen, or
that sounds really fun.
It's very fun. It's like an RTS without any of the base building element, and it's very simple to play. So
I just played the demo for what group? I can't remember the name of it, but the game is called Carrion. And
I played Carrion too.
Yeah, and it's basically you're the monster from The Thing trying to escape this facility, and you're
escape or eat everyone.
Maybe
a little bit of both.
Well, you gotta eat people while you're escaping. It's really fun.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
I remember someone did a story of The Thing from the creature's perspective, how it feels sorry for these people, because they're separate and alone.
Yeah, but also I need to live.
Yeah.
Actually, there's I have been playing another game.
Yeah.
It's Evil Bank Manager. It's essentially you're running like in the 14th 15th century, you're running one of those giant banking institutions that owned countries.
Banking magnate.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's set during that time period where you're trying to build up your bank to basically become the economy of all of the known world.
Interesting.
And, I love sim games.
Oh, me too.
To a huge extent.
Me too.
Yeah, interesting. I'll have to check that out. I do actually have one last thing to talk about. A documentary I watched last night, very good, called Ramen Heads, which is about ramen noodles in Japan.
Oh boy.
And it's great because it focuses apparently there are these cults, well, not actual cults, but very intense followings of ramen noodle fans for certain ramen noodle chefs.
Oh yeah.
So there's this one guy, Tomita, who basically you show up at 6 a.m. to book your reservation for lunch that day. And it's people wait for hours and hours to try his ramen, which it takes him 27 hours to make the broth. He puts a pig's head in it,
I could go for some ramen right now.
Yeah. It's they talk about the different styles of ramen, the history of ramen, but I love how they take the three most famous ramen chefs. They're all going to celebrate, Tomita's 10-year anniversary of his shop opening up. And they're going to do this by making the special ramen just that one day, and only 200, they're only going to be able to get 200 people in.
Oh my goodness.
And so people wait in for literal a day.
Yeah.
And so it's waiting for Comic-Con or waiting for this, but just for ramen noodles.
Hey, I've had some really good ramen before. I can absolutely understand.
I just love that
waiting in line for all day.
These people are doing very well. Their restaurants are constantly booked up. They're celebrities, what's called the demon of ramen, and the angel of ramen. And they're yeah, no, we're just gonna make noodles for 200 people, and that's it.
Yeah.
And their noodle shops are all super tiny, 10 people.
As soon as our broth is out, then we're closed for the day.
Yeah. It's they're done. We open up at 11, we're closed at 5.
Yeah.
I mean, we spend the rest of the day preparing and cooking,
Yeah.
but like we go to bed at like midnight and wake up at 5.
Now I want ramen.
Yeah, there's a ramen place down the road
Yeah,
actually.
that place in Austin
yeah.
was really good.
We'll talk about it at the show. I'll tell you where it is, so you can have ramen after this. But anyways, it's a really great documentary. I really love this idea of these people who are basically celebrities, but they're also like, they just cook ramen all the time, and people just follow them around, and they're so happy they cry when they eat this ramen.
No, I can understand that. I've had ramen that good before.
Yeah. I really like that. Like, we don't have anything like that in America where we like will follow. I mean, not to this degree where we just follow particular chefs or we just appreciate food that much that we will wait that long. I don't know. I quite enjoyed it. It was very nice. So, that's it for the shout outs, but then we have the anecdotes, of course. So I guess we could talk about your World War II Skid Deep game, I guess.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It was really pretty. I said, there was. Just said it during the war because I figured the war, because Hitler was looking for magical artifacts. I'm kind of saying, most of what he found was about 99.8% of what he found was just old, but he did happen to find a couple of things and it was actually going after the Spear of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, like you do. The old Wolfenstein special.
Which I kind of said, it can actually kill a demon if it stabs it. Which is kind of affecting the whole balance of everything by to actually just kill one. That's kind of that was the idea. But the players, I had a white stag who was a mailman who couldn't deliver mail because the blitz was going on. I had the Jub Jub bird. I had a normal human who just actually happened to have a celestial trumpet because in real life he's a musician. And God, I'm totally. Oh, and my friend Sean was playing like this unwillingly immortal sorcerer from the 13th century who is very tired of living. But it's just like they were being led by a Draugr, dead guy who died in World War I. And essentially it was just a whole lot of them just improvising, trying to find out where they're keeping this thing. And the one that I think everyone agreed was the best was they're in occupied France, trying to sneak into this chateau where.
The White Stag led them away.
Yeah, that was that situation, and it was owned by a French nobleman who's like, of course you can use my chateau as a headquarters. Of course, I'm all for you. Don't shoot me.
Yeah,
and the Jub Jub bird is trying to sneak in, so he's the only one that can fly, and. He critically failed 2 flight checks in a row. And as the player put it, yes, he may have been a bird and may have flown every day of his life since his primary feathers came in, but 2 crit fails are 2 crit fails. And the owner of the chateau was like up on this little balcony, and he just crashes right into it in full form. But I already said that this guy's grandfather was a contemporary of Lewis Carroll, and who totally believes what he says. No, I wrote about it. It's a real place. And so when he sees one, the bird's looking oh God, this person has seen me. And there's that moment of tension. And then the guy's like, I knew it was true. And this guy becomes the bestie of this bird. So much so that after the game was over, he says, "Oh no, I still go visit that guy."
That's cute. I like that.
Because it was World War II. I didn't want it to be just shooty bang bang all the time.
Sure.
Because it turns out doesn't matter what kind of mystical creature you are, a tiger tank or a bullet can really be bad.
Did you give Tom any input on this for his game?
Not as much as he's pretty good on the lore, but I have drawn several of the characters.
Yeah, I think I did ask okay, I want to have this Draugr, an undead guy, who because I think because all Draugr in mythology they're usually just undead berserker warriors. Well, that's because when they're alive they're usually berserkers. Yeah, and so when they die they're still in that state, but. He died during World War I, not in a berserker state.
That, and luckily, I don't have a whole lot of Norse mythology set in canon, so being able to, but I do like having that. So he kind of found a spot that didn't have a lot of canon already written into it. So I like to really. A lot of my world building is built on the rule of cool. So
sure,
yeah. So Draugr sounds really fun. Yeah, he's canon,
and also his he's also in the current world actually is totally not married to a bugbear from France.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, bugbears, okay.
But yeah, he trained her to fight in war because he needed a partner. And I say they recovered the Ark of the Covenant before the war.
Like you do.
Like you do.
Like you do. All right. Sounds quite entertaining. So, anyways, I think this has been quite a fun episode.
Nice.
You can find Kory Bing. Where can people find you on various websites and social medias?
Twitter, and usually I'm Kory Bing everywhere. So it's KoryBing. I think my Instagram, my Tumblr, my Twitter is all Kory Bing.
Your TikTok.
My Patreon is patreon.com/Kory Bing. So yeah, mostly anywhere you can find me if it's Kory
Your
Bing.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's strangely clear.
Your MySpace.
Yeah.
Friendster.
Yeah.
I don't
My
know.
Vine
We'll
account.
keep Napster. That's probably a thing. I don't know.
My LimeWire.
Yeah,
account.
your LimeWire. Oh, wow. Yeah. KoryBing.LinkinPark.exe.
And her many 6-second videos on Vine.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's TikTok now, Tom. Well, I guess
Well,
it could be on both.
TikTok is the cool place now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I like cool.
Vine doesn't exist anymore. Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, be sure we'll put links up on that.
Thank
so, Tom, where can people find you?
I am Lustrian Snake on Twitter, and that's primarily my online. I'm also Lustrian on Discord.
Yeah, you can. If you're a member of the RPPR Patreon, you can bother Tom all you want on the Discord.
That's right, and I'll probably even respond.
Yeah, be sure to add
And
him.
I'm thinking of actually running some more games on there.
Great.
Because I got a scenario that I've been trying to do for a while.
I know we scheduling is a problem. It is.
So I might just have to just run it there for our fans.
And I'm, of course, at Ross Payton on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page, Facebook group. And if you could please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, not iTunes, as it changed over a few months ago. I forgot to change that. Apple Podcasts or your podcasting app of choice. We rate and appreciate it. And, of course, we are on patreon.com/RPPR, where you can get bonus episodes, artwork, and join our Discord. And, of course, contribute to our Q&A podcast that or ask us questions, and we'll answer them. So
We
anyways,
totally will.
Thank you all for listening. And we'll
Have a good one.
Thank you.